Hello, everybody. This is Sue Frederick. Let's have a mystical conversation, the kind where we lose ourselves in the wonders of divine mysteries, share dreams from the other side, intuitive nudgings, and soul mission yearnings. I'm the author of 11 books, including Through a Divine Lens, Bridges to Heaven, I See Your Dream Job, and the Sacred Numerology Workbook. I'm an ordained Unity minister and a soul regression therapist, and my website is SueFrederick.com. But I am most excited about my incredible guest today, who I am so blessed to call a friend because we happen to live in the same town and I adore this woman. Her name is Farah Gibson. She's an evidential medium and a best-selling author with the simple goal of healing this world one person at a time. Farah says that she was born with her gift of mediumship. Now, Farah is sharing heaven's validations for people all over the world while heaven paves the path to those she touches with heaven's love. She makes it her goal with each reading to challenge your loved ones in heaven, to give her validations that others wouldn't know because your faith that your loved ones carry on after the physical life is the most important part of her journey. She says that a reading with an honest medium should truly feel like a visit with heaven. Farah has written and published 4 books because she feels that the more we know, the less we fear when it comes to having a loved one in heaven. And her website is farahgibson.com. What a pleasure to have you here,
Hi
Farah.
there. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Uh,
And it's
you
always
know,
so good to see you.
it's so good to see you. And if the viewers remember, you were on my podcast 2 years ago, and we had just come off of the other Helping Parents Heal conference where you had done your amazing work, and we had met then. And then I got
Yes.
to watch you this conference, Helping Parents Heal conference in August. And I got to say before you tell the readers anything,
Yeah.
to watch Farah give gallery readings is like nothing you've ever seen before. Not only does she make it hysterically funny so that grieving people are laughing and laughing and laughing, but then she brings in this incredible, extraordinary evidential the scene of how that person crossed, the scene of what they're doing and what they see you doing here. I mean, it
Yeah.
is so detailed. It just blows everything you could ever believe about mediumship. It blows it out of the water. Farah takes
Oh,
it to such another level. So, Farah,
thank you. Yeah.
and I
I
didn't
try
give
really
the
hard because I think there's beautiful in the terrible. So,
Yeah, and I didn't give the name of your book, so I need to do that. The new book is called How Do I Live Life When My Child Is in Heaven? And the subtitle is From Shattered to Healing. And you all can get this. Can they get it at Amazon?
yes. They
Yes,
can
get it.
order it on Amazon. Yes, it's available on Amazon and it is available all over the world on Amazon because I wanted to make sure there were no limitations to the healing that it reaches for parents and for people with kids. And honestly, for any type of loss, you could read this book and substitute the word child for spouse or, because there's so much profound information in this book to bring healing. But
Now, I
yeah,
know that you work with a lot of parents, but you also work with people who are just grieving, a partner or a parent. So, what
I do.
inspired this book where you would focus on parents who've lost a child?
So, so we did do the Helping Parents Heal conference in August, and I want to say that I have the exact date in there, but it was I want to say like September 1st. I was literally like driving down the road, and this was a request from heaven, you guys. This was not something that I planned on doing. I was not like, oh, I need to write another book, and I literally had zero plans for a book. And I don't just hear your loved ones who have passed. I talk to, my guides and all of my support team that I say I have in heaven because it takes a lot to support this girl to keep her grounded. to do what I do as well. I have a pretty good team that's probably going like this sometimes when I'm delivering messages. But I say God is my boss, and there are times where my days are interrupted by the big man himself, and this was one of those days. And I was driving down the road, and God said I need you to write a book, and I was like, and I'm cussy and fun, just with Penny of Heaven, and I'm like, I'm teasing back as and I'm like, what am I going to write? You know, like a poetry book, or you want me to put the poetry book that people keep asking because I do write a lot of poetry. And he said, no, I need you to write a book for the parents. And when I got that request, it was such a profound request that I was not going to be able to ignore, but it did not come with a lack of cuss words from me because I was like, you've got to be effing kidding me. I knew that that request was going to entail so much because the loss of a child in the physical sense is such a sensitive subject, but there's so many different categories of different types of loss and different types of journeys that we can live with our children, whether we lose them in a pregnancy or advance forward and or we have disabilities or abortions. I mean, there's all different types of loss, and then there's illnesses that our children could have, or addictions, or maybe they're just wild as heck, or maybe we just didn't expect this at all. And I was going to need to cover every single bit of the information that I could possibly think of covering. And I knew I was like, oh my gosh, like, can I do this? Not only could I do it, I had so much inspiration from heaven flying at me that, you guys, I wrote this book in 3 months' time. And it
And
was,
on that note, Farah, the table of contents is every single topic that a grieving parent would ever have or a question they would ever ask. It is so comprehensive. I'll just read for the viewers. The first question or the first chapter is, where does life begin? The second one is about soul plans. Everyone wants to know that. Did I plan
right,
this? Why would I plan it? And
why?
the
Right.
third one is baby passings. I mean, these are such tender, tender topics. Life purpose, what about hell? On and on and on. And Farah, no one is better suited to answer those things than you. In particular, what do you say, and even in the book, what do you say when somebody says, why would I have chosen this in my life plan?
Well, I think first things first is there was so many parents out there that were saying, there's no guidebook for when you lose a child. Nobody's put out a guidebook. And this was really heaven's way of, like, through me helping to put out a guidebook that if this is your first day of your child being in heaven, you can read this book and it will bring you so much knowledge that will help. And then, and if you're into this situation, for years of grief, this is still going to bring such profound information. And I don't even remember what you asked me.
So let's talk about soul plans.
Soul plans, yes. Okay, sorry. But those soul plans. So I think the biggest question too is, like, why would I sign up for this?
Right.
Everybody, hears about, oh, you're learning, you're growing, and then there was no real answer to, like, why? Why are we growing? What are we coming here for? If heaven is so freaking perfect, why did I leave there to come here for this? And
Right.
why would I ever sign up for this? And there is growth in that, but nobody had the understanding in their writings about, like, why do we grow? They just put that we grow. And that was the biggest question that I had to really throw at God and go, look, if you want me to write this, you have to give me the reason why, because even I couldn't put it into words before. And then I got all of the information for that was so profound. So each and every one of us is made. My body is my car, your body is your car, and my spirit is the driver of my car. My spirit is driving this car through this journey. But why did I write this journey? Why would I come here to write this journey and live in this car that I'm driving around? And the truth is growth, but each of us is made in different levels of light in heaven. And God is the highest level of light that exists. Jesus, is one of the highest levels of light that's ever come to earth to drive one of these cars, which is why he's so profound to all of us in so many different ways. Um, but we have different levels of light in heaven, and we have the ability to grow our light level to be more like God's likeness. And I'm using the G word. And if you don't believe in God, please throw that out. Put universe, love, whatever you want to replace with that. I always say I never want to challenge anyone's faith or beliefs. but you're coming here to grow to be a higher level of light. And those of you who have written the hardest journeys are growing the most. And you should be so proud of yourself for this journey. And this book just helps to put all of that soul planning and the reason we do this into perspective.
Well
So,
said.
yeah.
I always tell people if they agree to have a child cross in their
Oh
lifetime,
gosh.
it means they were signing up for an accelerated growth path because they wanted to really become like God, merge with the God force, and it was
Yes.
possible. And the greatest pain on earth, I believe, is the loss of a child. Therefore, agreeing to experience that in order to wake up on earth to the fact that we're spirits, not human physical beings,
Right.
that is an accelerated enlightenment path. You can't
Yeah.
help.
And all of your knowledge of this has been erased before you come here. So how hard is that too, right?
That's
So you don't have
right.
that knowledge and you just jump into this thing like head first.
That's
So
right. So, Farah, one of the things readers might not know is that this gift came to you as a child, that it's natural that you haven't gone to the very, fancy mediumship school
never.
people go to now.
I never had a class, folks, and I can tell you, if you have one day of college, you have me beat. So there's that. School was never my thing anyway, and it's something I was born with. Did I always understand it? No. I always knew I had it. So people will say, "Well, were you afraid of it?" Well, no. Why would be? I wouldn't be afraid of it because it's something I've always naturally had. But I did start finally getting pushes to, from within to really start, understanding it. And, it's trying to find my footing through my childhood was not easy. And I write about that in the book, and I didn't have a support group or somebody that was mentoring me or even embraced because nobody knew. I mean, honestly, this was not something that I shared. When you're going through terrible things in life, it's kind of hard to share your beauty.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of life experiences that I had to live in difficult ways so that I can now relate to the people that I was going to help.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for every terrible life thing that I've ever been through. I grew up with a lot of abuse and a lot of terrible moments. And then when I grew up, I grew into a relationship that had a lot of abuse and terrible moments. And again, I write about that in the book. But it's all given me a foundation of understanding the people that I would help. And I would live through all of it over again if it meant that I was going to continue to help people with my life experience and my abilities.
And the,
So,
and the good news is that you're now married to a
oh my
wonderful
God.
man whom I met at the conference, and he is such a sweetheart.
And he's
And
good looking too.
he's
Yeah.
very cute.
He's so
And
cute.
when I met him, I said, There is nobody like Farah. Thank you so much for loving her and supporting her." And he said, "You are right. There is nobody like Farah."
You know what? He actually just told me that in tears the other night on the back porch. He said, "You know what? There's only one of you in this world, and you're
Oh,
my person." And yeah.
that's so
But sometimes
good.
you have to hold on for the ride too, because there
Yeah.
is only one of me.
And in numerology, you're a 22-4 like me. That's another reason I've always just loved you so much. It's that inner strength in you to come through that kind of a painful childhood and keep
Yeah.
seeking the light. And no matter what happened to you, you could have decided to be an angry, negative, bitter.
You can become it or you can become better than it. And that
That's
was always
right.
my life motto. And yeah, I mean, I think that you have people that sign up in your life and your family dynamics to challenge you, and you can become just like them or become better than them with your free will. Not better than, but better than the moments that they're giving you. And so, I've always looked at every terrible and found the beauty in it and asked myself, how can I be better with this? Whether it was, my first stepmom who was extremely physically abusive, I later became a stepmom in life and I will never be like her. I will always be compassionate, and not that I don't have mom moments with my kids. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm still living a very human experience, but I always tried so hard to be the opposite of what I didn't like in somebody else. And that was their beautiful blessing to me is giving me the terrible
Yeah.
because I could turn it into beauty. And it's how I'm going to live the rest of my life.
But also, what you do is that when a grieving person or a grieving parent comes to you and they are immersed in the terrible, in the horrible
Yes.
feelings and the grief, you give them so much evidence that their
Yeah.
child lives beyond the veil. That, I mean, I've been in the room and seen the
Yeah.
transformation happening to these parents. And
Isn't it amazing?
and one of them you write about in your book, I really wish you could share right now about the Vietnamese soldiers. Would you tell that story?
I would love to. So, one of the stories is I was at a group reading, and there was 10 people present at the group reading, and there was an 11th person that was present that was sitting in a chair with his arms folded. He did not want to be there, and he was a husband of one of the people present. And, he's kind of scowling at me, didn't have much to say, and after watching me connect for 3 hours for other people, he loosened his stance just a little bit, but not much. I mean, he was holding in there, guys. Like he was holding to his, like, I don't believe in this crap. And that's fine. And I would say he was probably in his late 60s. And at the very end of it, I looked at him and I said, "Can I come to you?" And he still had his arms folded and he goes, "Give it your best shot." And I was like, "Game on, you have no idea." And I said to him, "I have two Vietnamese soldiers coming through. One of them says that you slit his throat from left to right, and the other one says that you stabbed him twice in the chest, and all you had was a pocket knife, and you weren't supposed to have to take lives in that war." And as I said those words, this man's jaw dropped and tears are just pouring down his face. And at this point, he's not saying anything. And his wife is looking at him with her face turned towards his, and her mouth is open. And she's like, "What?" And then the Vietnamese soldiers showed me something else. And these Vietnamese soldiers were in heaven. Um, they were showing me that he was loading bombs onto planes. And then the way that they got across that validation across to me is they were showing me what my husband, who I have now, was in the Air Force, and he loaded bombs onto planes in Korea when he was stationed over there, and he was part of munitions. And so these Vietnamese soldiers were showing me that this gentleman in front of me did a similar job. And so when I looked at him and I said, "Were you loading bombs onto planes?" He sat back and he said, "How the F did you know that?" I'm trying not to cuss on your show. um, and and I said, "Well, they're showing me this, and this is what my husband did, And as I explained that, he sat back and he was just crying. And then he finally was able to answer. And he said, "Yeah, I was over there, and he was supposed to be in a non-combat position, and he was loading bombs, munitions onto planes. And these two Vietnamese soldiers had broken onto base, and he was in hand-to-hand combat with the two of them, and all he had was a pocket knife, and he ended up having to take their life in the manner that they had explained." And then he sat back and he moved to a place of why. Why would they come through for me? You've brought through moms and dads and kids, and he was just really moved to this place of like angry almost for a moment. And I said, "Because they love you." Well, then I shocked him again, and he sat back and he goes, "What do you mean they?" And he's crying, and he's like, "What do you mean they love me?" He's like, "I killed them." And I said, "Yeah, but as you wrote a soul plan and you wrote that you were going to come to this world and you were going to be in the military and you were going to be, in the US, US military, and you were going to be in that Vietnam conflict that a lot of other souls were writing about in heaven at the same time because they were planning their lives." I said, "You wrote that you were going to be a hero for your country. How on earth were you going to be a hero for your country if somebody didn't write to meet you there?" And I said, as those men were writing their soul plan, and they were also going to be in the Vietnam conflict on the other side of the on the opposing team, so to speak, right? They were writing that they were going to graduate to heaven as heroes for their country. And they walked up to you and said, "Can you bless us with that graduation?" And to put that into perspective for him, I mean, this man, it was so much for him to process because he didn't even believe what I did at first, and he's now moved in probably 10 minutes time from not only believing to finding the healing that his heart had needed for so many years. Since he came up to me afterward and he was just trembling and crying, and he hugged me and he said, "I've been in PTSD meetings since I got back from that war." And he goes, "And I'll never have to go again." And I said, "No, no, 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 you go to those meetings and you inspire those men that there's hope and there's healing possible."
Yeah,
But for him to understand that soul planning in a different way that we would
right.
even normally on a human sense comprehend, because war is terrible.
Yeah.
And, you have to go over there to hate your enemy.
And I've always believed and taught for many years that for a soul to agree to be in a war situation
Yeah.
means that they already know they're going through accelerated growth, and that those are
Yeah.
the most courageous souls because they know it's going to be a horrifying experience and
Yeah.
will wake them up, just like losing
Yeah.
a child, So
Yeah.
what I love about that story is you show the whole soul story of war
Both
right there.
dynamics of it,
Yes.
and that's what's so beautiful is that heaven has. When I started to say that I was going to share my abilities, I literally, you guys, spent my entire life challenging heaven for the information that was going to go with it. I didn't just want to hand a validation to somebody and go, here you go. I wanted, I didn't want to be book smart, clearly, because I didn't go to college, but I wanted to be heaven smart. And I really wanted to be able to hand over not just the validation, but the love and the purpose behind it. Because that's where the healing, when you understand it, not just handing it to you, here you go, here's this, but if I can teach you how to understand why that validation is, your healing lies within that knowledge. And that's really the purpose of my book, trying to cover every single dynamic, even the, taboo topics and every suicide and abortion, all of those things are in this book because there's so many different dynamics of loss and in the physical world. And no matter who you've lost in your journey, but those who write the most difficult spirits are some of the most amazing, strong spirits that exist. So I always tell them, be proud of yourself and where you're standing, because not everybody has written a difficult life like you.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
yeah,
They are accelerated souls,
yeah,
as you are, Miss Farah.
it might be. Don't tell my secrets.
But one thing, that story brings up so beautifully is imagine the world we live in if we didn't spend all of our time trying to blame others for everything that's bad that's happened in our life or in the world.
Human ego is a terrible
Right.
thing.
And imagine, that man that you just changed his life, the soldier, he
Yeah.
was locked down in anger, that he had killed somebody and then blame that they had broken into his
Pain.
base and that he had had to kill somebody. I mean, it had shut his heart down and kept
Yeah.
him from loving all the people around him and his family.
Yeah.
And that is not how we want to live here. We want to
It's not.
live our lifetimes with our hearts open and courageous and feeling the pain and seeking the deeper meaning and the light. And
Yeah.
people like you lay that out so clearly for people. And as people can see looking at you, you're so charismatic. You have those
Yeah.
eyes that are from heaven. And you're a singer, Farah. Do you want to talk about that?
Oh my gosh, I am a singer. But yeah, no, I will say, I did ask Kevin, I was like, why now? And, because really life is meant to be hard. And we'll talk about the singing, but life is meant to be hard. So we have this constant yearning for life to be full of love and peace and perfection, right? But the truth is, you come here for the hard. And
Yeah.
so there's not an entire life of yours that's going to feel like heaven, although we get glimpses and moments of it. But God really told me that, like life is getting so hard because of so many different changes and we have to change with it. And I feel like the world just needs more information to understand that they can keep going. But
Yeah.
yes, girl, no, I do sing. And that happened actually. Well, I mean, I've been singing my whole life. I actually turned down 2 recording contracts in my lifetime for this crap. Uh,
I
and
hope
I always
everybody
thought that I
heard what
wanted to
she
be a
just
singer.
said. Everybody pause. This woman had two big time recording contracts offered to her as a singer,
Yeah.
and she said no. So don't look at her now and think, oh, she's just a medium who wants attention, because Farah,
No.
I know, has done everything possible to keep that spotlight off of her. So
Right.
I'm
Yeah. No, I
shining it
do
on her
because
right now.
yeah, I want to keep my home life a little private. I definitely don't want the reality show. I've turned that down a few times too. But,
Yeah.
with singing, as a little girl, I always wanted to sing, and singing was my outlet that got me through a lot of my abusive years, like being abused as a kid. I would actually sit down in the backyard and cry with my golden retriever. His name was Kilo. That's another story. And I would sing to him, and then I started singing more and more later, and I always wanted to be a singer, but when I had the opportunities given to me, I turned them down, and I'm thinking, what the heck's wrong with me? Like, I always wanted to sing, but the truth is I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today had I taken those contracts. So there's a reason that I turned them down, but I can still sing. And those of you who have kind of seen me in person, probably you might hear me throw a song out, like, because if your loved ones bring one up, I'm not afraid to belt it if I know it. So
Well, that's
Um,
why you're so entertaining as a medium on stage, because if a song is coming to your head from a spirit, you just belt it out, you know? I
yeah,
mean,
we've
it
got
is
this.
so entertaining to watch you do it, but then validating with the incredible detailed stuff that you bring forward. It's really
Yeah,
like not, I mean, I've seen a million mediums in my life, and I've been doing this work for decades.
yeah,
There's nothing like you, Farah, and I hope everybody listening gets a chance to witness you or see you work or read this
yeah,
incredible book. Um,
yes.
one of the things you talk about in here that I think we should really also, again, emphasize is when a child crosses, so many parents, because I work with them too, will say, "Oh, my poor child was alone and in their apartment for two
Oh,
days
yeah.
when they died," and they're all hung up on the final moments and the suffering. Please
Right.
talk about that right now.
Right. So, and again, all of that's in the book, you guys, in so much detail too. But, like we worry about that on the human level. But the truth of it is the millisecond that your child passes, no matter how terrible or how easy their passing was, depending on, whether not that anything's easy, but I do mean that there's different tragedies, that can be
Yes.
impacts, things like that. Or if they pass and they're in an apartment for a couple days before they're found, they're instantly in pure perfection. It is their sit the F down. Guess how I got that cure story? The millisecond that they pass to heaven. It's us who are broken. And then when we think of them like, oh my gosh, like I didn't even go check on my child for the 2 days, or I didn't have them, like I didn't get a hold of them. And all of those things that we beat ourselves up on the human side for, you know, as they're in heaven and somebody's finally coming to their place to check on them, they're already in heaven. They're perfect. And then they're
That's
like, oh, here
right.
they come. They're literally like, oh, they can't get in the door. Oh, they're
That's
trying the
right.
window. You know what I mean? Like it is so light for them in heaven.
Right.
And a lot of times, with impact passing, car accidents, things like that. I mean, they know their soul print when it comes to those moments. So typically they don't stay in their body as a soul for the impact. They're like, oh, I'm out. And a
Right.
lot of times, like especially sometimes there's somebody else in the vehicle with them. Like I'll see them jump out of body and wrap themselves around and keep somebody else from an injury, those type of things, because it's not their time. So they're like, okay, I got this. I'm just going to do this instead because this will be way better. So it's lighter in heaven. It's heavy here on earth. And so I try to separate that knowledge. You have this very human focus because you're living this very human life. But if I can introduce a bit of, the behind the scenes, reason for those moments, it just makes it doesn't make grief easy, but it is easier to process, parts of your grief with the knowledge. You're always going to miss the physical. You're
Yeah.
always going to miss the physical. But if I
But
can teach you that you always have an unbreakable spiritual bond that you've known long before you ever came here, I don't even have to teach it to you. Actually, your soul knows it.
But
And if
the
I can
thing
remind you
that
of
you
that,
capture that's so important for parents, especially, I think, is that we get so hung up in focusing on the details of how the child
how they pass.
crossed. And
Mm-hmm.
that is the torture for so many moms, so
It
many
is.
parents. And the funny thing, it's not funny, I guess, but the spirit of that child is going, I'm right here. I'm not
I'm
in that
good.
suffering moment. I am great. I'm having a
And what about
wonderful
all the other
time.
moments that we had, all the dynamics that
Right.
we shared that you love me so much for, even if it's a miscarriage, you guys, there's still life
Right.
purpose in that miscarriage. And you still have those bonding moments of the moment that you found out you were pregnant. And like all of those moments are still life experience. So when we think, well, I didn't get a chance with them, you have so much love that they have blessed you with in their lifetime, and their passing and the way that they passed is not the reason that we love them so much. The dynamic of them being a part of our journey is where the love lies. So, if you can take their passing, it's why I always, when I do my first reading with somebody, I always walk through every millisecond of the passing.
Yeah.
And because it's where our pain sits. I
Right.
did learn that, like when I'm on stage, I probably don't need to walk through every passing first because I'm bouncing through the audience. So we don't need to just walk through a bunch of passings. I'm learning to like let the kids like, hey, let's put that on the back burner if it's not a one-on-one, and let's just kind of walk through the fun stuff because it's an audience, and maybe we'll do that behind the scenes, right? But it's really where your pain sits. And I know that that's so important as a parent or anybody, that's walked through a passing. I think
Yeah.
your knowledge, knowing the moments really gives us a chance to just process it one more
Right.
time. and then set it down and then pick up your favorite memory. And then they move to the fun stuff in the
Yeah.
readings, you know,
I mean,
and we
I
talk about
think
those.
that's what your gift really is too with grieving parents is get them out of the this is so terrible and I can't be happy or I'm
Yeah.
insulting my child's memory into look where they are now. They're goofing around and trying to make you laugh and they're singing your favorite song and they're cussing up a storm. And
Oh
you
my
know,
gosh.
when Chrissy, my best girlfriend, died back when I was 30, she had me before I even knew she had crossed. She was flying me around all night, making me laugh, looking at
Oh,
our
I love
friends
that.
that we'd grown up with, making me laugh, laugh, laugh. And I woke up that morning going, wow, I was laughing with Chrissy all night. And then I found out she had crossed and
Oh,
she
she
had
came to
come,
see you.
she instantly came to show me that it is God is
Good.
laughter, God is love and happiness. And the minute we're
Yeah.
out of the body, it's joy. This part here
So
is the hard part. Nobody
this is
believes
hell.
that.
This life thing is hell. This is as bad as it
Right.
gets, folks. So yeah, yeah, it's amazing. Once you know.
Yeah,
When you
once you
don't know, it's
know.
hard. It's really hard.
Right.
But you use a lot less judgment in the world for people. If you look around you, every single person in this world is doing what you're doing. They're living life purpose for growth. Every homeless person, every drug addict, when we look at people with judgment sometimes, now that doesn't mean we have to invite them to our house. And you know what I mean? Like, I mean, I have two sisters who have struggled with addiction in their life, and there's probably a lot of the people that come with that they hang out with that I don't want around my place and inspiring my kids, and all of those things. So there is a very human line that you have to cross that, or put in place at some level, honor your worth, honor your space, and work hard. I always say, like, I lived every day as a day that I want to be proud of when I do my life review. And is there going to be
Yes.
moments I'm not proud of? Absolutely. I'm still living the human experience. I might have lifted my middle finger once or twice in life, or maybe even more than that, and there's going to be moments where even I go, oh, could have done that different, but that becomes growth. It doesn't
But
become regret.
that's such an
So
important point about the soul review because I know that many people grow up with the idea through religion that it is an external God judging us. And in fact,
yeah,
Farah, my 98-year-old mother, is clinging desperately to life because she's Catholic and she believes that she's not going to go to heaven where dad
she's
is.
afraid.
And
There's a
she's
lot of
afraid.
fear in some of that. Yeah, and
And
it's
and
unfortunate,
yeah,
the
because
God
we
that I know is
know.
super cool and laid back, and he made me the way that I am for a reason, right? But when we get back to heaven, I mean, he's given you this free will to like live this life as you wish for your
Right.
growth, and he supports your blueprint. And so, when somebody signs up to be a villain in the life
Right.
that we live, why on earth would they be punished for playing the role of the villain?
Right.
The
Right.
truth is, we're going to high five them and go, man, thanks for the lessons. My
Yes,
ex who
that's
beat me and spit
right.
on me for 17 years and told me how worthless I was. In the human sense, I still hope he steps in warm gum, I say, because if that reflects back on me, I will buy some new flip flops because I just wear flip flops anyway. And but on a spiritual sense, I know that I'll high five him and say, wow, thank you for growing me the way that you did so that I would be strong enough to stand on my own 2 feet to help people. There's so many people in my dynamic that have really made me who I am today. And on a human sense, do I want to go through it again? No. Would I? Yes, I would absolutely go through it all over again to be the exact version that I am in this moment. So,
And I think the soul review is so important because, even somebody will say, oh, well, my loved one was not a nice person. I'm afraid that they might have gone to hell.
they weren't meant to be.
Right. They were doing exactly the life that, and they learned everything their soul was supposed
Yeah.
to learn from that path. And their own
Yeah.
soul saw the life when they were crossing. The soul review is done by our higher self.
By our higher self. And so
Yes.
when we go through that, we're the judge.
Right.
I say the word judge, but it's the best way that I can use it. But we're the judge of our own lives. Like, did we
Right.
achieve what we set out to with our free will once we got our free will in place, and
Exactly.
did you do the best, that you could in the role that you were meant to play? And that
That's
villain is pretty damn proud of some of the things that they did
That's
because they grew you the most, and there's beautiful in that terrible.
And
You
they
wouldn't be the
stirred up the
person.
growth, you know. I mean,
Right,
Shakespeare said it, 100,000 years ago that there are players that are good and bad, and we're all on the stage together wearing
right,
different costumes, you know. And that
right.
is true. I agreed to come in as this costume, and you agreed to come in as that one because we had different roles to play and different things we wanted to learn.
Well, and I talked about that in the book as well, because a lot of, parents have children who struggle with sexuality as well. And so I always say, and again, I don't want to challenge anyone's faith or beliefs, but I do believe that we have a defined sex in our spirit form. And our defined sex in our spirit form does not always match the sex of the car. So when people are, really concerned about a gay or transgender or all those things, the truth is the spirit within is still very attached to who they are within. And it doesn't always match the car that they're driving. So trying to put all, you guys, there is an explanation for everything in spirit that we have human judgment for. Now, human judgment is meant to be. So when you say it would be a perfect world, if everybody, it would be, but,
But it wouldn't be Earth
um,
World.
it wouldn't be growth the way it is if everybody just understood it. But I think more people need to understand it at this point to get through how hard life has become in
That's
this
right.
world, in this
That's
day and
right.
age. So,
Well, is there anything else you would like to say to the parents who are going to read this incredible book because it
yeah,
will guide them through their grief in ways that are just profound and helpful? What would be your parting words to them?
I would say that every single word in this book is inspired by your kids. Every single word in this book is inspired by heaven. And so it's not by, like, and I say that in the book too, it's not by chance that you're going to feel your child in this. And your child, if this book finds its way into your hands, it's because your child helped to put it there, or your loved one. Like I said, I mean, it could be read by anybody that has a spouse loss or anything, and just exchange the word child with spouse, and there's so many dynamics written in there that it could help anybody. But there's not one word in this book that is not inspired by heaven for me to share. And the reason that I shared some of my difficult moments of my life in this book was because it was finally time. I haven't written, I've always kind of like danced around, yeah, I had a hard life growing up and I've never told some of the stories. And so there are some of those profound stories in there, but I got to use those stories to really put life into perspective and loss into perspective. So it was finally time to, this was not going to be an easy book to share and not give different dynamics of life and perspective. So
So
you're gonna love it.
where can people reach you, and are you still booking clients, or how far out are you booked?
I'm always booking. I know that I'm booking into June at this point. So yeah, I'm always booking, and they can just reach out through my website, farahgibson.com, Fara, F like Frank, ARA, Gibson like the guitar, Gibson.com. Dad couldn't spell, but he had a crush on Farrah Fawcett. So yeah, and you can find that there. Or if you go to, if you're on Facebook, you can find me at Farah Gibson Psychic Medium. And I share a lot there, you guys. Even if you never book with me, hopefully you find something that I've written that'll bring peace to your heart on your grieving journey. So
Well, all I can say is you are a magnificent soul, Farah, and it has been my greatest honor to know you and to even meet you in person and see you in person and know that you're real. You're not just some imaginary figure because you have so much mythology
no,
around you, the way you do your readings, it's phenomenal. And I get to see you. You're going to do a gallery reading pretty soon for Helping Parents Heal, and that'll be on Zoom. People can find that if you're part of helpingparentsheal.org. So, on
yeah.
that note, thank you for everything you do, Farah. Thank you for being alive. Thank you for being here. And
Oh,
thank you for sharing so much wisdom with those who grieve.
you're welcome. I'm not coming back to live this life thing again, though, just so you
Yes, I
know.
know.
And I do want to say really quick, I did dedicate this book to Helping Parents Heal, the organization, because they are absolutely amazing and so driven to help so many parents with children in heaven, and my love to them in a big way as well.
Yes, me too. All right. Love
Yeah.
you, Farah. Thank you.
Love you back.
Until we
Thank
meet
you so
again,
much for having
everybody.
me. Yeah.
Bye-bye.